What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another weekly edition of your Tech Marketer newsletter. We have, as promised, a very, very special edition this week. We have none other than Patrick McBride with us, who's going to walk us through his service inside of Agency Zoom. So, welcome to the newsletter, Patrick.
Feel like I need one of those bah, 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 intros every time
Sorry,
someone says the one,
I don't
the
have a
only,
soundboard.
or
Sorry.
yeah, yeah. Well, work on that, would you?
I'll do my best. I'll do my best. So,
My guy.
couple weeks ago, we sent out a a newsletter talking about setting up your service pipeline, some best practices and whatnot here. So we figured that we would go through and have an actual real life agent talk you guys through why the pipeline is set up that way, go through claims a little bit, some notice of cancellations, and then go into the reporting and specifically why we set the pipelines up that way because of the reporting. So with that, Patrick, the floor is yours, my friend. Go ahead and share your screen and walk us through it.
Yeah. So we set this up actually. So we did a what we called an automated weekend with 5 different agencies early this year in February, and I sat there. Really there to kind of help other people do great things. And ultimately, I walked away learning how to better set up our own service pipeline. So in February, I retooled our service pipeline to be able to track things a little better. And what we came up with was kind of what you see in front of you. So we do a fair mix of standard lines. Currently we're about 30% commercial, and that number is growing. We're trying to get to the 50% mark by April of next year of 50% commercial, 50% personal. In that mix, there's a lot of E&S. So there's definitely some pieces here that may not be relevant to everyone, but just kind of see what we're looking at. So this is a high level view. There's no customer data here, but what you can see is request received. So every time a request comes in, whether that's through the service inbox that we tied into Agency Zoom, whether it's through our mobile app or client portal, you actually can submit. Dan, you actually helped us create parsed emails where when someone submits a request through the mobile app or through our client portal, it parses that out, finds the customer inside Agency Zoom, and then creates that service ticket inside the request received tab, which is the goal. So everything goes and starts here. Even if we start in the process, have everything in, we have all the information we need, we don't actually skip this stage because all the automations are triggered off of moving into request received and choosing the appropriate service category. So we have something like 30 service categories. It's not that many, but they tell us what we're doing. Is it an ID card? Is it evidence of insurance? Is it plus or minus a driver, plus or minus a vehicle? Those types of things. So all of that was triggered, and a lot of this was basic. So we always go from request received, and it also communicates to the CSR, whoever takes that inbound request. If you call and you talk to me, I'm going to create the service ticket on the account, and it's going to go in the system, and our service team and our CSRs, account managers, they're going to be the ones who take care of that. So once that account manager grabs it, they're going to grab whatever card is sitting here and they're going to move it over to in progress. And that communicates out to the customer that, hey, our service team has gotten it. So some of this, and the biggest picture possible is from request received to completed, there are some things that you don't have control of as an agency. If the client didn't know the lien holder on the vehicle, right? We're going to move this over immediately in progress. Hey, we're getting started. You know what? I don't have the lien holder. I need you to get me the lien holder information. We're going to make that phone call. Hey, Mr. Customer, this is Patrick here at the McBride Agency. I need a lien holder for this vehicle before we finish this up. And we're going to leave that phone call. And then there's a series of messages that go out, a number of days that go out here until we actually get that information. And on a lot of calls, vehicles actually excluded. Vehicles won't shot clock over to completed because we're still going to add the vehicle even without the lien holder.
Okay.
We're just going to add it without the lien holder. That way it's insured. There's no questions there. Lien holders can get bad and we can go back to that process and add it later. But if it sits in waiting on client long enough, we actually have a shot clock that will just push it directly over to complete after we sent 4 different emails saying second attempt, third attempt, final attempt. We sent 4 different text messages, second attempt, third attempt, final attempt. And we've left a couple of voicemails. So it's not just, and we've actually made those calls manually, not just some robocall right now or AI call making that out for us. We're actually doing it manually. Our service team's picking up the phone and we're getting it done. And the vast majority of our tickets are actually completed here manually. Very, very few are shot clocked. Waiting on third party is always, we need information from the bank. We need information from a third party. We're waiting on feedback back from a carrier for billing issues, or why this got done that way or why this coverage wasn't added, even though we requested it.
And this is
That happens.
not claims. This is all just service right here, correct?
Correct. And so we have three primary pipelines outside of renewals in our agency. One is service. Actually, I'll just kind of highlight, we actually have a claims pipeline. We have a notice of cancellation or notice of repair, all in the same pipeline. So we break those up on purpose. And I'll tell you why in a second. But waiting on third party and submit it to ENS. So it's basically submitted to the broker. Sometimes we can't make the change. We have to submit that email over. And it could take up to 30 days for that broker to respond to us that coverage has been bound and applied, and here's the information. So it can sit here and then move to completed after it's actually been received back from the carrier. So in essence, before I jump and show you why we do the claims and the notice of cancellations and repairs separately, is claims aren't service. Claims are claims, right? It's different. If I'm going to service your policy, that's different than you not paying the bill or you needing to update your siding or soffit or paint the house or, fix that deck or whatever the case might be in this market. So we have 5 essential stages here. And from request received to completed, we were looking at timeframes that were really unacceptable. And we didn't know how to break down. We didn't know where the breakdown was in that process because our service time was incredibly long. So we broke this down where if I can control something, the first thing I can control is how long it takes us to get the service ticket to start working on it. If I can control this, I can shorten the time that it took us to get it from request received to in progress. We're a small agency, but we do a lot of service because we're growing fast, but we have a small team. Sure. Sometimes that takes a little bit of time. If we can control this, if everything from in progress to completed stayed the same, if everything there didn't change, but I was able to reduce the time on the front end, we actually reduced the amount of time that client was able to, or that amount of time that service ticket stayed open, which means my service team did less work, which means our client was happier because they got better response times. And that was huge for us. As a result, and I'll show you the reports, as a result, we actually saw requests received to in progress reduce in time dramatically. And then we saw in progress to completed actually reduced down significantly, which really means that our entire process, we cut in half what our time was from request received to completed from before we started. We were measuring, but we weren't holding anybody accountable. Mm-hmm. And we had the conversations for dang near a quarter, saying this is what we've done, this is why we did it, and we watched those numbers. And then in July, we used it as a control method. And August was our first real month of making efforts, and we cut those numbers in half without any real objective other than, hey, this is too long, it's got to be faster. And our team, without compromising accuracy, our team was able to cut those service times in half.
I'm excited to show that report here in a little bit too. That'll be fun.
Yeah. So you did ask, like, we don't do claims in here. Claims are different. So claims actually looks a lot like this. So we have 2 primary categories here that may not be familiar with, right? So we do potential claims. The client calls in and says, hey, I had some wind damage to my house last night. A little bit of siding flew off. What do I do? First thing we do is say, go get an estimate, right? Go get the estimate, call a contractor, call us back, and we'll have a conversation if it's worth spending the money on your deductible or if it's going to make sense long term. We're doing the right thing from a risk management standpoint for our clients. So it goes into potential, at date and time logs what's going on. It records the phone call. It attaches it to the service ticket. It's sitting here and it stays there on purpose. And it will stay there for up to 30 days. And then it will just shot clock to complete and say no claim filed.
You mean as a consumer, I have to actually pay my deductible? I thought that was just wrapped into the claim.
Yeah. And that is what we call insurance, my friends. That's not a game we're playing today. So, potential really is, it's a potential claim. This is the decision. There's an incident that happened that we want to record, and we want to get time and date stamped to record it in our systems. And it records it here. It launches it over to our AMS and syncs all those pieces together. So there is a recording of that incident. So there's never a question if the carrier says you didn't report it in time. So we're just now waiting for the client to get back to us with some follow-up that happens there.
Sure.
So CAT claims, this one we did, and I definitely procured this from one of my favorite agents in Tennessee. When a storm rolls through, being able to go follow the path of that storm and tag those customers, whatever that storm name is,
Sure.
make up a storm name, add those people, and then have them, or go build out a custom form real quick. Like, hey, did you have any damage? If you have a claim or potential claim, submit the information on this form. It drops them here and it tags them as that specific storm. And it allows our team to manage that high volume of calls. And it communicates very specifically about that individual storm out to our clients. We use this one the least out of everything. We filed it. And there's only two ways to file a claim: with us or directly with the carrier.
Sure.
And there's different communications for either one of those styles. Once it gets to adjusting, this is really more of a follow-up. We have a 1 month, a 6 week, and a 3 month follow-up. And then we just kind of let it sit there. And we follow up as necessary if it's still open after 3 months. So
Sure.
Once it's adjusting, we have some automations that drop in the adjuster's name, their phone number, their email. It sends the information out and it just does, hey, did they contact you? It's really heavy in the first 2 or 3 days with making sure that they understand the adjuster is the point of contact for the claim. However, if there's something specific we can help with, let us know that specific item, because we need to be out of the adjuster's way. We're an advocate. We're not in the middle. I'm not a claims adjuster. That's not what our office is. That's not what any of us are. And then go to completed. So there's our claims pipelines. And we pulled the big thing that we did in February is we pulled all of our notice of cancellations out. So we had this pipeline for notices of repair because the market was getting really strict. You've got to fix this 7-inch section of soffit needs to be repainted. And that's a real example from a carrier that they wanted a 7-inch section of soffit painted, or they were going to cancel the policy. And this was a client that they had for 3 years. They did an inspection. It was an interesting one. So we moved everything over here. So this serves two purposes. One is obviously the notice of cancellation. The other is the notice of repair. Everything goes into we've received the notice and we've now notified the client. And this is driven on that category type. Is this a non-pay? Is this a non-pay because the mortgagee didn't pay? Is this a non-pay because any other type of non-pay, right? Maybe it's a direct bill, it's a renewal, it's a whatever it is, right?
Right.
Or is this your porch needs to get leveled, like your sidewalk is cracked, go fix it, something of that nature.
You don't have a handrail for those 2 steps outside your front door.
Right. So if that client submits the proof of repair, it goes here. And it creates tickets for our team to follow up with submit the information over the carrier, follow up with the carrier, follow up with the carrier, follow up with the carrier, right? So like get back to the underwriters, make sure that this is good and it's completed. Once it's done, it moves to completed. If it's a notice of cancellation, it will sit here and it will go. There are specific automations that will say, hey, Mr. Customer, you owe us X amount of dollars, or this particular policy is pending cancellation because you owe this many dollars. It's due by this date. Do you have time to call us today and make that payment? Right? Text, emails. There are specific phone calls that go out, again, manual. We're picking up the phone still, right? We're not as automated as some people think we are. Picking up that phone, making that phone call, having a conversation with the customer. If they tell us at any point in that conversation, I can make that payment, but I can't do it till Friday, we will immediately take this card and move it over to waiting on payment. And there's messaging that goes out that says, hey, Dan, thanks for connecting with us today and letting us know you can make that payment. I've got a due date, a reminder set for Friday on the 13th. That says these pieces.
And so you're changing the due date on the service request that comes in when you're moving it over to waiting on payment, right?
Right.
Perfect.
So the kicker is with all of these pieces, we have a due date here of the cancellation date. Whenever that cancellation date is, if you don't pay by October 1st, it's canceled. And if you don't pay us by October 1st, we still need that, whether you're going to pay us on Friday the 15th and it's still due by the 1st. That actual due date of the service ticket didn't change. It's just a custom field that's getting updated there. So if these tickets in either of these stages receive the notification of notice of cancellation or the waiting on payment, if we get past the due date or the cancellation date, it shot clocks immediately to canceled, reinstate. So, and it will spend 10 days there with an email and a text message every day for 10 days and only one phone call. So if that policy cancels and if they didn't communicate with us in any way after all of the messaging here and it gets over here, my team has spent an extraordinary amount of time. This may not be a policyholder that we want.
Sure.
And we've made that decision internally, and that's completely a personal decision. We have less out of 1,800 policies. It's more than that now. Gosh, it's over 2,200 now. But out of all of those policies, we have less than 10 to 12 non-pay cancellations in a single month on average. So
yeah, that's doing a good job of fielding your book on the front end for sure.
right. So we've allowed some natural attrition to happen there as we grew and we got to a sustainable point. But it will move over here and it has 10 days worth of automations that go out with one phone call. Once they get to the end of this stage, it will shot clock to complete and it's done and it's over. So we separate notice cancellations and repairs out from claims and from service on purpose. Because at the end of the day, those are different types of, they are a part of the service team, but they're just different aspects. And I think I've said this before, there are only 4 times your customer ever talks to you. And really only 3, because if they're your customer, the first time they talk to you is at sale or binding, right?
Sure.
The
right.
3 times they talk to you, when they need something changed, when they have a claim, or when that policy renews. Those are the only 3 times we talk to our customers. So having when they need something changed, when they have a question, when there's some sort of service request created, having a process to track what's going on, what was said, who said it, how long it took, why it's still open, and holding our team accountable has been a dramatic affair. And we've seen, not only did we see that our service ticket times went down, we actually saw a marked increase in responses to our Google reviews when it tied directly to our service tickets.
That's
because
amazing.
we ask for those after every service ticket. And we saw, I think, 15 reviews in the last, less than 15, but it's more than 10. Since we started this at the beginning of August, we saw a huge jump just in 1 month. So we're just shy of 260 Google reviews. And we saw 10
amazing.
of them come in the last 40 days.
And that's huge. You mentioned having the process in place, because if there's realistically only 3 times, and I mean, let's be real, the renewal is the only one that's going to be consistent out of service and claims. You're not getting a lot of at-bats to make a good impression on your clients. So it's incredibly important that when they do contact you, you are leaving that good impression. And clearly you are, because you're getting, in 45 days, somewhere between 10 and 15 Google reviews. That's pretty outstanding.
And it's more powerful when it's a service review than it is, for me. It's more powerful and it's more impactful, and it means more to me, the agent, that someone who's been with our office for X amount of time makes that review, or finally makes that review, because the service that they received was better than just, I saved you $100.
Sure.
I can't control the savings. It's the one thing we can't do in our industry. We can't control the savings.
Right.
And too many times we see savings come from lack of coverage. And I know every insurance agent out there, when they see somebody, their competitor cuts their rate in half, we automatically think they cut coverage. Which is like, oh, you can't do that without cutting coverage. We do it. But how many times have you, or even I, have been able to say online, like, I just saved this customer $1,000 a year by increasing their coverage? Right? It does happen, but that's not what we think when it happens to us.
Right.
So
right.
having those reviews,
falsifying a discount that's going to fall off at renewal anyway. So
yeah. We had a funny one where we had a veteran in our office, and we added the vet discount. Our producer at the time, she didn't read the full word, so she thought it said veterans discount. It was actually veterinarians discount, and it fell off at renewal. Yeah, he wasn't happy, but he thought it was hilarious. And we ended up, I mean, the company actually moved out of the market anyways, but he thought it was hilarious, and we just moved it to a different carrier and found him a good rate. But everybody makes mistakes.
It helps coming from a vet, probably, that you were able to retain that.
Yeah. Like, dude, I mean, I can barely read. So the fact that I even understood it meant vet, no, it wasn't. And it wasn't me that did it. I just thought it was funny. I totally took ownership of it.
Yeah, no, that's funny.
Because at the end of the day, that's on me. So,
right.
You wanted to see reports here too, right?
I do. I want to see why you set the pipeline up specifically like this, so that you can see the reports in a specific way.
Yeah. So if you don't know an agency Zoom, there's this fancy little reports tab here on the side. And if you go down to services and click on service velocity, you can choose which pipeline you want to view on how long things are taking. So I prepped this for the call. I want to look at July. This was the month that everyone knew that we were looking, but they didn't know the numbers. I just kept telling him we're going to start making this a part of it now that we've had this in place for a while.
Sure.
So there was no question about how long it takes or what stage to go to. We'd been doing this since March. So March through July, they had 4 full months in the pipelines. There were no questions about what goes where and when it goes there anymore. There's no questions about the automation. So we really gave enough time to make sure that that was a fair assessment when we started measuring. So all service categories, all service tags, and actually if you want to see some of our service tags, right? Cancellation pipeline, claims pipelines, renewal pipelines, and service pipelines. So we have 4, and there's a couple weird ones down there, but
Sure.
I think everybody's got weird stuff. So we want everything, and the date range is July. So this is pre-prepped, and you can actually see we did 151 tickets, went from, and actually here's the big piece, request received to completed. So 151 service tickets that went through this pipeline alone, and it took 70 hours and 40 minutes to complete them on average. But we had one person who took 138 hours to average completion, and another one that took 43. And this gal down here, that doesn't actually count. That was a testing one, and it took 6 minutes. So we were testing on her. But you can kind of see where that goes and what the trajectory was. So I want to immediately move this to August. So we can see last month. That's 8/1 to 8/31. So we were at 70 hours before. We immediately went down to 48 hours.
And similar number of tickets too, 124 tickets.
Right. So this person right here went from 138 hours on average to 89 hours. This person went from 40 plus, 43-ish, I think we were, to down to 35. So that's the whole ticket. Again, some of this, we can't control pieces. There are some pieces we can't control. So when we look at this, I want to look at request received to in progress. How long did it take us to actually respond to that request coming in and being assigned to us? It took us an average of 11 hours, and we're working on some of this still. 9 hours here and 20 hours here. And actually, I will say this, these numbers are skewed by one particular service request for each of them. We reopened closed service tickets, and it jumps that time back up based on how long it was closed and all those pieces.
Okay.
So each of these 2 people had these numbers. When I looked at these numbers at the beginning of the month, he was at 5 hours and she was at 14 hours total. So we actually get to remove like 5 and 6 hours from this outside of those one individual tickets. So knowing your numbers and knowing why this happens is a key piece. So
Sure.
We're still able to see such a dramatic difference. And I'll show you the last one I'll show you here is, let's go month to date this month. So 38 service tickets this month, 4 hours. And this is 8 tickets at 20 hours, but he's got 30 tickets in 0 hours. Because he's getting it and moving it immediately. And I will say the difference here is one of these people is the really easy add a driver, remove a driver, add a vehicle, remove a vehicle, add the
Sure.
lien holders, the EOIs, the COIs. Like, so he's got more tickets and they're easier to do. This person is much more in the review, a little more detailed work. What happened to our policy? We made an acquisition and she's doing a lot of the back end paperwork there. She helps with an audit from one of the carriers that we acquired. And so some things take a little longer for her to dig into. So we don't expect them to have the same number, but as long as our average can be low is what we're looking for.
Sure. Yeah. That's
so the
incredible.
3 numbers I look at: request received to completed. So this month, our average completion time is 3 hours. Our request received to in progress, our average is 4 hours. Now, this is only measuring what has been started and moved in this time frame. So you'll actually have more tickets, which is why you see more time here. But I also can measure, remember I said that there's some things we can't control. So I can't control from when we start to when it gets to completed, right? But our average is only 7 hours, and we're dropping those numbers over and over again. So this is this month. If we just immediately go look at last month.
Yeah.
Right? Being able to organize our pipeline to have the right stages so we can actually look at the information in the right workflow. right? I think everything we've ever said from the tech marketer standpoint is understand your workflow, and then we'll build everything for you, right? We'll do it for you. But understanding your workflow, I know what our workflow is, but I modified the workflow slightly so we could have better reporting. And we just trained and trained and trained and trained. And then we started measuring, because the things that matter get measured. And the things that get measured, you get better at, right? You improve on.
Right. Right. Yeah. And
so we took that.
You hit the nail on the head, right? You knew your process. You adjusted your software to fit your process instead of the other way around. Yeah, you're going to have to modify very slightly certain things based on the limitations of what you have, but 99% of what you have set up inside of Agency Zoom was dictated because you sat down and said, I want to get from A to Z, and these are the things that I want to accomplish on my way from there. And then you set up your pipeline to look like that.
Yep. And removing the notice of cancellation. So notice of cancellation was actually in this pipeline up till the end of February. So when we moved this, it was a training point for our team. We had service tickets that were here that we had to move somewhere else or make sure that they finished themselves out here. So when we turned the other pipeline on, everything new went to the new pipeline, but we still had some service tickets that were here. So you can't, March was a wash. Getting everything out of there, you couldn't track the real data. So April, May, June, July, kind of having those control months, making sure that everyone was comfortable. You've got to be able to train. You can't hold somebody accountable to something the very first day. You have to look at a bigger picture, and you have to have the patience to do it. Nothing in automation is an overnight success. And if you have an overnight success, excellent, amazing.
And document it so you can do it again.
Right. Document so you can replicate, because replication is the thing that matters. And that's the reason automation exists. We're not the fastest growing agency. Maybe we are. I don't know. We're not the largest agency. We're not the fastest at quotes. We're not the fastest at service. We're not the fastest at anything, but we're consistent, and we're consistent over time, and consistency over time means more than anything else I could ever imagine.
Yeah, I couldn't possibly agree more. So this was a lot of information. So I highly expect people to be watching this video over and over and over again. But this was great. So now, like I said, we kind of walked through how to set the pipelines up, but now being able to see that why behind it, I think is going to really start making a difference for a lot of agents that are reading this, watching this, hopefully not reading, 30 minutes worth of this, but watching this later on YouTube. So Patrick, I appreciate it. Any other parting thoughts, words, anything like that you want to share before we hop off of here?
I think the biggest thing is no one out there is as automated as you think they are. Nobody. And if they are automated, they're losing some of the connection. Automation should only serve to empower the people you have on your team and to empower more real connections with your clients and your customers. We do a lot with automation. We do a lot with automation because I want to buy back time with my team. And I want my team to have the capacity in their day to care when someone calls and says, this happened. I want them to be able to drop their pen and pencil or whatever they're doing. Or I say that like we don't have paper in our office, right? It's virtually paperless. I want them to be able to drop what they're doing and have a real conversation. And that real conversation matters. That real conversation can only happen without putting off all the other work, because you created the capacity in your own day because of the automation that you put in place, because it's doing the work, whether I had the time or not.
Right.
That's the one thing I would say is no one out there is as automated as you think they are. And you have to start somewhere. Make the first step, and then take the second, and then take the third. Don't be afraid to screw up. Don't be afraid to try again. Don't be afraid to turn off his app because you built a better one. Right.
Right. Or an automation or anything. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. My Zapier is a testament to that. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of of turned off, antiquated, and should be archived zaps that I just haven't gone through and cleaned up yet. So
can
yeah,
confirm.
man. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Patrick, thank you again for taking time out of your day to hop on here. I know all the agents that are watching this very much appreciate it. So thank you guys as well for sticking through and for subscribing yet again. So look forward to talking with you all next week, and have a good rest of your day. Thanks, guys.